Hello, and welcome to another edition of Behind the Numbers, the podcast that seeks the personalities in the technology industry. So before I dive in and speak to our very special guest today, I'd like to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by Kinetic Core AI. They're a firm that help fintechs grow their profits within 12 months. So if you're interested in a free growth consultancy, drop the word grow in the DMs and we'll take it from there. Really pleased to have on the call today, Justine Assal. Justine, originally from the UK, but has spent a lot of her life within Florida in the United States, is the president of NextPay Global. She's had quite a significant career, as we'll talk about during this podcast, but more interestingly, she's also the British honorary consul for Central Florida and also an MBE as well. So really interested for our UK listeners to dive into what that actually means in real terms and how she's really benefiting the UK economy by making an impact across the pond. So, Justine, many thanks for joining today and great to have you.
Thank you for having me, Matthew. It's a pleasure.
Great. So, looking at LinkedIn, your CV is all very impressive. So take us through step by step a potted history of your background, your education, your career thus far. I guess what took you to the States in the first place, and what's going on in your space at the moment?
Okay. Well, that should take a couple hours, I guess. So, interestingly, my journey's been anything but linear, actually. And that's probably what makes it more interesting. So, yes, as you mentioned, I was born in London, moved to Orlando with my parents at the time when I was still a child, and then lived here, went on to study at the University of Central Florida, which is in Orlando. And although I've moved I moved to France, I've moved to different states. Predominantly, I've lived in Orlando most of my life, so this is home now. Married to a Lebanese man, which then prompted me to end up learning Arabic. So I speak Arabic and French. I think when you look at the combination of my life and the fact that I I'm from two different countries now, I think that's where you can see my career started becoming very globally focused. So it wasn't really a strategic decision. It's just who
Yeah,
I am.
right.
Just a child of the world at this point.
Yeah,
So professionally, ran a consultancy for many years, helping international companies, particularly European, British, and a lot of Latin American companies expand into the U.S. market, usually via Florida. So that work over the years has given me a deep understanding of the operational challenges that come with trying to function cross-border as a company. So whether that's from banking, payments, regulatory navigations, building local relationships, understanding the rules, particularly in countries where, like the UK and America, we think, well, we speak the same language, but we don't. So it can cause complications that I think people don't always anticipate. So over that time, a specialization really in working cross border, and it's where I enjoy. That then ultimately turned into me starting a NextPay Global, which is a payments and FX company that helps cross border companies to manage their foreign exchange exposure. I think it's an area where a lot of businesses, they're very focused on other areas and they don't necessarily realize how much that foreign exchange exposure can hurt them until perhaps it's too late. So that's what I do professionally. But as you mentioned, it goes a little bit deeper than that. MBE, my appointment as the honorary consul in Central Florida really comes from more than 20 years of me trying to help, not necessarily on a professional basis to be paid for, but help to grow bilateral trade between the UK and Florida. I like helping British businesses that come over. I like seeing that grow. And some of that came from, seeing a lot of companies that would come over and then they would fail for various reasons because it was
yeah,
difficult. And some of it was just, I want my two countries to do more business. I like it. Out of that, it was amazing. 2015, as you mentioned, I was awarded an MBE, and now I work with companies daily, helping to make connections and helping them to kind of ease that transition so that they can expand the footprint here. Uh, so all of that then kind of blends together, I would say. Community work, my consular work, and then my professional work. And I think it builds the foundation of what I do with NextPay Global and what we're hoping to be. as we continue to grow in these various communities. And that is that we're not just kind of a nameless, faceless fintech company. We have very, very deep relationships. And so when I speak to people, there is a trust that's already built there, and it's a responsibility that we take very seriously. And I think it's what really sets us apart, because you can be a fintech, but what does that mean these days? It still means a human relationship, and it still needs trust. Otherwise, what are we doing?
Fully agree with that. I fully agree with that. Just if anyone listening is, thinking about this cross-border US UK relationship, could you sort of just set out what you've seen companies do which hasn't worked, and how they've fallen foul, and what you would recommend to be cognizant of if you're starting that to be successful?
Definitely start doing research. And again, I think it depends on the size of the company. You see a lot of smaller companies come over. When you're looking at big corporations, generally you're going to reach out and get legal help before you do it. And I would suggest that any company, regardless of the size, takes that time to do that. Sometimes I see companies coming over because the owners, and it may be a mid-sized company, but the owners are wanting to get a visa to come and live here. But if you're already accustomed to doing business in the UK or doing business in any other country, it just doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate exactly the same way here. And so I think that it's, what hurts you in life is the things that you don't know. So it's making sure that you're reaching out, connect with if it's a British company, connect with the British consulate. So the consulate here is in Miami, and the reason that they appointed me in Central Florida is that that's 3.5 hours away. So if a company is looking to move to Orlando, for instance, or to Tampa or anywhere in this region, there's massive growth going on. Massive growth in a variety of different industry verticals. And companies can really just kind of get involved by reaching out. They'll connect the company, or the consulate will connect the company with me. And then my job is to kind of help make introductions, if you will,
Yeah.
so that we get all of the professionals on board that they need, so that we help mitigate issues before they arise. So research and connect, and research and connect. That's it.
The golden rule sounds good.
Yeah.
And how would you sort of describe the British companies? How are they doing in Florida? You've described that there's a massive amount of growth. Is that relationship strong? Are we seeing a lot of UK companies trying to get a foothold in the US, and certainly within Florida, and build that base there?
In a nutshell, yes. So when 2 years ago, there was a memorandum of understanding that was signed between the governor of Florida and the UK to lower the barriers, to lower the governmental barriers and all of the bureaucratic barriers in certain industries where both the UK is very strong and Florida is very strong, so that it makes it easier for companies to go to market much quicker. What we're seeing is that Florida is exploding. We've got an incredibly robust tech environment, certainly in Central Florida and South Florida, whether it's fintechs or life sciences or law tech and any kind of tech. Orlando has the largest modeling and simulation cluster in the world. And so you see a lot of these companies, certainly in tech, you can kind of borrow from one industry to another, and the skill sets are very transferable. So it's very ripe here for hiring if it's a company that is in one of these industries where there's a big focus. And then a lot of aerospace as well. You have a lot of aviation, aerospace. It's growing very rapidly. And so the answer is yes, we're seeing a lot of companies come over. There's massive collaboration that's happening, and I'm seeing more and more of it. It's very open. It's a very friendly place to do business, Florida. It really is.
Yeah. No, that's great to know. I mean, you've touched on a couple of key bits there, like the friendliness, the environment, skill set. I mean, anyone listening who's thinking of investing in the US, and what would what is it about Florida over and above the two things that make it a good place?
I
You
mean,
know,
we don't have bad weather.
that's great, right? So we do have a lot of it, as you well know. So yeah, that's a good start, isn't it?
You know.
Great, great. Okay, wonderful. Really interesting. But let's talk a little bit about NextPay now, because what's keeping you busy as well. So tell us a little bit about the services that you offer. So if I'm a client of yours, what would I expect to receive from you guys? What's the first part of the process? What the offerings? Yeah, and the value that you would bring to someone like myself.
Okay. So NextPay Global is quite simply a cross-border payments and an FX company. And we focus only on corporations. So any corporation that has any foreign exchange exposure, whether it's because they're sourcing materials, they're employing, they have offices in multiple currencies, they're selling, whatever the reason, it's a pain point. It's a pain point. And unfortunately, certainly for SMEs, any smaller middle-sized enterprise, they don't have the same suite of services available to them that large multinational enterprises
Of
do.
course.
So, I mean, that's kind of the differentiator. So, while we work with both, what we see is that if you're a middle market company, you probably are still working directly with your bank to do each of these international payments. International wire payments can be expensive, but actually, what is the most expensive is the part that is very unclear. And that's, what are you being charged? What is the margin? So anybody that's working in foreign exchange, any company, whether it be a bank or a non-bank, they are paid on the margin on top of the actual exchange rate, the interbank rate. And so a bank gives you a rate and they say, this is what you get. And you say, okay, great. And then you do your trade. But it could be 2%, it could be 3%. What actually is that? So generally, we're always going to beat a bank. It's just what the first thing that we need to understand is, where are your, how much are you trading? What currencies are you trading into? How many payments are you doing a month? And if a company then sends us, if a client sends us, let's say 3 different trades that they've done recently, then we can look and say, okay, this is what you were being charged, and now this is what you would charge. So what do we bring? We bring efficiency, because we have an incredibly robust online platform that sends payments. You can do spot trades, you can send all of your payments out of it, you put your beneficiaries in. It's actually what you'd expect in
Yeah,
2026 to
sure.
do, the same way that we all do our personal banking. And for some reason, companies are still sending their international payments and doing their foreign exchange as if they're in 1985. It's a strange thing. So we don't work in 1985. We work with incredibly robust AI platforms. And I have to say that our strongest point really is a partnership, or the backing that we have from Corpay. Corpay is the largest non-bank provider of international payments in the world. So we work in over 200 countries, over 146 different currencies. And that relationship with Corpay allows us to offer a very robust suite of services to these kind of middle market companies. For them, institutional grade exchange rates, which they would never have access to otherwise. So we do that, but because of our relationships in the community, we do it with a very human face. We are very relationship driven. So when I go and speak to a company, or somebody from our team goes and speaks to a company, these are people that we're in the business community with. We know them. So we're not trying to just find any clients. We're trying to make sure that we're actually working with these clients to offer a very tangible benefit. At the end of the day, that's what matters. We want them to refer us on to others. So very cool AI, very incredible. So a lot of efficiency, great rates, and very relationship driven.
That sounds great. Now, so I just want to pick up on the AI piece, right? Because I know there's a lot of, I guess, naysayers or people worried about the impact it will have on jobs. I'm slightly more optimistic, right? Not least because if you look at, say, the job market in the 70% of the jobs that exist today didn't exist then, right? So things will
Yeah.
evolve and change. I'm a big believer that AI will give us the ability to have more customer-centric conversations and more that type of thing. Do you see that in your way? The way you've deployed AI gets rid of the mechanistic activity that gives you the ability to, like you say, have those deeper relationships, and it's not just a wallless sort of UI that people are engaging with. There's people and there's expertise that you are providing as a result.
I went to a function recently, and somebody in the audience asked a question. They said, "Well, how do I know that I'm not giving all my information to AI?" And the lady said, "Well, I mean, but you are, but they probably have it already. The difference is that if you're not incorporating AI into what you're doing with your business, don't go to work. because you'll never be able to compete with the companies that aren't. So I think absolutely resonated with me because that's the truth. So it's not a matter of whether or not this is happening, it's happening. So the question is then, how do you embrace it? And I see that in some companies, I think there is probably an overdependency on AI where perhaps it's breeding a bit of laziness. You can see that where it's obviously not human. I don't want to speak to non-humans. I really don't. I am very relationship based. I need to look you in the eye and do business. And ultimately, it's programmed into us. We do business with who we trust and who we like. So what does it do and where is its place? Its place is to get rid of all of the things that take up an inordinate amount of time. An inordinate amount of times. Allow it to make us very efficient. Allow it to, in this payments platform that we have, it takes the busy work out. It takes the human touch points out. So does that change somebody's job? Yes. But the more touch points you have from human beings entering information, the more opportunity you have for error, the more opportunity you have for that IBAN number that you just put in to have one number missing, and all of a sudden your international payment went awry. And
Exactly.
now you've got people screaming at you. Well, that's very human because they're still going to scream at you if you haven't done it right.
Yep. 100%.
So what does it do? It has a huge place. I'm personally very excited about it. I embrace AI. It blows my mind what it can do. And I think it's just getting started, but its job is to make things more efficient. You know, we have this platform, you put all the information in it. For a company that's working with an ERP, it it integrates seamlessly with it. And so your employees, your team, they have more time to go and work with the clients and to put that human face to it and to double check everything.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, it sounds like your excitement and optimism is aligned with how I see it. Yeah, that's
Good.
just watch this space, what we got coming up on the horizon. So 18 months, what's happening for you guys? What's the plan and the objectives, and where do you want to be in 18 months?
Where do we want to be in 18 months? We want to keep growing this relationship. We want to really grow our thought leadership specifically in Florida. We have clients from all over the world, but because we're based here, we're very embedded in Florida and the UK, certainly that transatlantic corridor. I see a lot of companies in Florida, and I see we're increasingly becoming a more global business community. So it's not a matter of whether you need to do this. It's when you need to do it, how much you need to, and whether or not you look at making changes before you realize that they're costing you an inordinate amount of money. So growing our presence, growing our ability to work with companies and educate companies on the benefit of being ahead of the curve with having a multi-currency platform and multi-currency bank accounts within the platform. I hear a lot of local companies that say, oh, well, I'm sourcing materials from pick a country, from Brazil or from China. But that's okay because I pay in dollars. I don't need to. But somebody's making money on that. How much are you being charged to have the convenience of paying in dollars? How much would it have cost you if you'd have done it in the local currency? So I think educating the community and growing and continuing to connect all of the countries in the world so that we're all doing business. I like doing that. So that's where we're growing. We're growing and having fun while we do it and feeling good about the good work that we're doing and incorporating lots of AI into it.
Magnificent, magnificent. Sounds like you're on the right trajectory as well. An exciting place to be technology wise, but then equally, I guess technology has allowed us to knock borders down and boundaries. And so, positioning yourself in that space to be able to facilitate that cross-border integration and business sounds like a good place to be. So great. So,
Thank you.
yeah, wonderful. So a question that I ask every guest, and we always get some really great answers actually on this, but so we ask, so what one piece of advice did you wish you would have learned as an 18-year-old Justine, which would have stood you in good stead for your business career thus far? So what do you wish you knew then, which you know now, which would have helped accelerate the path or helped ease some of the things that you had to experience over that time?
That's a loaded question. So I can tell you what I feel very good about now. Clearly, at the age that I am now, I have more discipline, I have more focus, and I don't take life quite as seriously. So I think there's a steadiness that comes with getting to be my age where you have confidence in who you are and where you're going and what you're doing. Hopefully, anyway, more than you do when you're 18. But at 18, I would say probably trust my gut more. stop second guessing, because I think as when you're young, you tend to listen to everybody else and you can get pulled in different directions. So if I did that and I was as disciplined, maybe I'd run the
Goodness
world.
knows what would have happened. Goodness
No
knows.
idea.
But I think that's great. And do you know what? It's funny. The trusting your gut thing is actually
Sorry, I apologize. Look, see all of the AI, and I didn't even mute my phone. Sorry about that.
that's all right. No worries. Yeah, so it's interesting actually. Quite a number of guests actually give the same answer in terms of being more trusting, like your gut and your intuition at a younger age. And I guess there's a confidence thing in there that maybe you don't think that you earn the right to do that. You need to have more experience before you can trust yourself. But as human beings, as talented individuals, actually taking that trust and trusting back in yourself. It would be a good thing to do. So that's something that we need to teach our kids a bit more in terms of being more intuitive with their own sort of self-belief.
So if I can add one thing to that, because I think it sums the whole
Absolutely.
thing up, and that is I don't know that I'd take it quite as seriously. I think I'd have more
Interesting.
fun with it. But I mean, it's serious. Business is serious. Just have more fun with it. Relax a bit.
Do you know what? I think that's great advice as well. And I think I think I'm in a similar position as well. I think children for me has personally helped me to do that in terms of putting things in perspective. And I think you get older, you do put more things in perspective, like in terms of what it actually means in the grand scheme of things. You do a good job.
Mm.
You take it seriously, but at the same time, it's important to enjoy
You
what you
don't
do,
take
because if you
yourself
don't.
so seriously. I think that's
Exactly.
it.
Being able to laugh, making a mistake and going, oh, well, that's just me, right? I'm not so good at that, but I'm trying, right? So I think that's really sage advice. And I think it's, very good perspective there. So thank you very much for that. So Justine, it's
Thank you.
been amazing having you on. I think, NextPay is in safe hands. I'm excited to see what the next phase of your journey looks like. Please
Thank you.
keep on doing the great work as an Englishman, guy from Great Britain, and a patriot. I'd love to see us doing more business out in Florida. I've been there on holiday a few times, so I know it's a great place to
Well,
go and visit. And
if you decide to expand, you have a direct connection. You know who to reach out to, and
absolutely, Justine,
anybody
absolutely.
that's listening, I would say the same thing. You've got a very friendly ecosystem here, and come on out, connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to speak to anybody, and happy to help where possible.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having
Wonderful.
me.
Absolute pleasure. So guys, if you like what you've heard today, please hit subscribe for more content that will come your way. And as stated, if you want a free growth consultancy around growing revenue, please drop the word grow into the DMs and we can have a conversation. But until next time, thank you very much.
Thank you.